everyone, how is it going? I hope it is going well. I hope everyone's week is going well. I hope that 2026 is off to a good start for everyone watching this video. I am undecided on my background. Maybe we're gonna be switching backgrounds like every other video. We might, I don't know, just for the sake of experimentation, right? Today I am here to talk about friendships and where to find them and how to find them based on my own experience. I personally am someone who looks for very deep friendships where we are having very in-depth conversation, and it's something that's educational in a way because we can learn from each other and challenge each other in the way that we think. And I think that this is, I know I'm a bit biased, but I think that this is the root of a lot of very strong friendships because you're not in an echo chamber. You have someone that is challenging you and your beliefs, and I found that to be very conducive to my overall like thought process and ability to argue and ability to see things from different perspectives, and just like learning more about the world. My advice would be to find a friend that teaches you about something new. So people who have interests that might be different from your own, or interests that just are very deep, or they're just very invested in something, like somebody who is going to teach you something and that you can have conversations and they can tell you about this thing and you can learn about something that you've never known about before, like someone who is challenging you and teaching you new things and not just repeating the same stuff. For example, some of the friends that I've made over the past few years, we can share book recommendations and she tells me about the stuff she's read and we're able to talk about that stuff, or she recommends a movie, or she's recommended music and genres that I've never thought to, or I've never really taken the time to dive into before, and that has led me to find some of my new interests because she's shared that. And I think that's a strong element of a friendship, is that you have to have different elements of your personality that you guys can share with one another. However, in my pursuit of friendship, I have definitely made the mistake of looking for friends in the wrong places, and I know I am not alone in this, and I'm sure that this is just going to be something that recurs throughout my life. People you've known for a long time, an environment you've been in for a long time, there's a point where you just know that maybe this certain set of people are not the people that I'm going to be able to cultivate lifelong friendships with. I think a lot of times with people you're placed with by happenstance, like for example, school, or I don't know, maybe a job. I'm not saying that you can't find your best friends there, but I wouldn't say that everyone automatically is going to be someone that you should look to build a lifelong bond with. And I don't know if people necessarily do this, but I have definitely made that mistake over the years. I've had moments where I was brought together to work with someone on a project, or I was with them on a team for some reason, and I thought that just being close with them, like in physical proximity, and having to work with them day in and day out and see them all the time, that would automatically be the thing that would foster a friendship, and that it would just automatically grow from seeing each other again and again. I was wrong, which is what I learned. And that isn't inherently a bad thing. And I'm going to explain that in a second. So a lot of these friendships that, again, were brought together by happenstance, they couldn't really, they didn't go anywhere. And that is okay, because I'm not destined to be best friends with every single person I meet. And I get that, but I was hoping for something a little bit deeper than surface level in many different instances. And that just didn't really develop, even though I tried. That's the thing also, is that you can't just discount people and say, you know what, I don't want to be friends with them, like whatever, they don't have the aesthetic, they don't have the we don't have common interests, we're so different, you know. I don't think you can say that, but I do think there's a time when you've talked with people and you've tried to build those connections and you've actually made the effort to get close with them and it's not working, that you just have to say, you know what, it's not going to be deeper than this surface level relationship. And I made the mistake for a long time of confusing surface level friends with deeper friendships, and that I always wanted them to grow, but they never did. And that was because I wasn't recognizing that sometimes not everyone is meant to be a super deep best friend. And I thought that that could be possible with everyone, and just naturally it's not. Like, you're not going to have that close bond with everyone, and that's why it's important to find the correct people. I'm not the first person to say this, but having a surface level friendship can be refreshing, right? If you have too many deep friendships, then it's pretty easy to get burnt out on deep conversation. When you're too focused on all the serious stuff and only hang out with people who you're super serious with, then you don't have then it becomes a little bit overwhelming, and it becomes a lot, and it becomes part of every single friendship is a deep conversation when we hang out for 3 hours type of friendship. However, those surface level friendships are beneficial. Those are the people who you can there isn't an obligation for anything more. Like, you can just have fun, joke around, go to the store, do whatever. And it's not an obligation that you have to confess everything that's going on in your life. And I think that's healthy to have that balance of having those different people who play different roles. Brings me to the $1,000,000 question. Where am I finding these friends, the deep friendships that I want, the relationships that go deeper than the surface level, you know? So where are you going to find those? Especially if you lived in the same community your whole life. I get it. I definitely get it. And that can be hard, but I do think that's an instance where you have to get creative a little bit. My advice here is something that I definitely did not do for years and years and years, and then I questioned why I wasn't finding the people that I wanted to be finding. You can't be looking for people in the wrong places. I should have been going to places where I would have had common interests with people, right? So joining a club or joining a sport or, you know, a religious group or the Goodwill bins actually is where a lot of the youth hang out. Just finding a place where you're invested in it, so you're automatically going to have that common interest to bond with people over. And I know that this is not revolutionary advice by any means, but it really is helpful, and it's something that you should definitely practice what you preach. I need to practice what I preach. Obviously, when you're meeting new people, this requires a degree of putting yourself out there and initiating conversation, going up to people and, you know, starting conversation, just starting to talk to them just to see. Like, you're not going to make friends if you're staying in a bubble, which is another mistake that I made, is that I would go to these places where I would have common interests with people, but I wouldn't be initiating conversation. Well, how are you going to build a relationship then? You have to be the one to take those steps to go up and talk to someone about whatever. This is about to sound very stereotypical, but you need to be who you actually be, the person that you want to be, to attract the friends that you want. So, for example, if you like a certain style of clothing, you know, maybe wearing that style of clothing will attract people who have a similar style of clothing. Like when they start a conversation and are like, hey, you know, I like your outfit. You need to be putting yourself out there and putting yourself in situations where even if you feel a little bit insecure or vulnerable, it's you doing something that you're authentically interested. Like here's an example, okay? So let's say that I was really interested in skateboarding, which for a while I actually was. But I was not good at skateboarding. This is a fact. I was not very good at skateboarding. But if I wanted to make friends who had common interest, even though I sucked at skateboarding, I would go to the skate park and, you know, look for people to meet, even if I was bad, and even if I was super embarrassed about being bad at skateboarding. This is all a hypothetical situation, but you know, the moral of the story is there. Even if you're bad at something, even if it might be putting yourself out of your comfort zone, that's good, and you need that, because otherwise you're going to be making friendships or trying to make friendships with people who you don't even really connect with. You know what I mean? If you're hiding who you truly are. To circle back to what I was saying at the beginning of this video, you should be looking for people who test and challenge you, not only in like the traditional sense of being able to teach you something new about a topic, but people who actually challenge you to be a better person, and being around them makes you a better person, right? So high vibrational people. And obviously high vibrational is going to be different depending on who you are, but you know, you should be looking for people who you want to be, who you want to emulate, and it doesn't have to be that they're this godlike figure that you really want to be like, but you know, find someone who has something that you want to be better at. You know, maybe someone's really good at baking and you want to be good at baking. Okay, that's a great person to be around. You should be surrounding yourself with people who you want to be like, because the saying you are your friends is quite true. Look at your friends and that's a reflection of you. You know, everyone says that. So true. So true. Anyways, all of this to say, the people that are around you should challenge you and should be people who you obviously enjoy being with, and I wish everyone well on their journey of meeting new people, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!